Hey everybody, Justin Irvin here again, welcoming you to another edition of Look and Live. I'm excited to share with you the radio interview I did last year for my upcoming film, Powernomics, based on the life and work of Dr. Claude Anderson. At the time I recorded the interview, the film was still very much in progress. That was, sometime last year, I don't remember, but now, February of 26, this makes the 2-year mark since we began our filming in February of 2024. It's been a 2-year process that I'm really excited to share with you guys as we move along. But in the interim, I thought it might be worthwhile to share on this 2-year anniversary of the project, this radio program that gives an interview about the process, the thought process, the progress, and the intention behind the making of the Powernomics film. Now, for those of you who know who Dr. Claude is, this is going to be a really welcome behind the scenes for you to hear about the genesis of the project. Stories I haven't told much yet in the public sphere, but you'll get the sneak peek here. For those of you who do not know who Dr. Claude is, this is going to be an amazing opportunity for you to get a little bit of a sneak preview as to the man behind the documentary. So without further ado, I present to you this radio program on 99.7 The Drum, with myself and Mr. Charles Traylor, recorded by Mr. Percy Squire on the Drum Radio about the Powernomics documentary. Hope you enjoy. Leave your comments below. Please click like, please share, please subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Look and live, y'all.
And good morning, this is Charles Traylor, and you are listening to another edition of Front Street on 99.7 FM The Drum, WKTX 830 Cortland, and thedrumradio.com. We have a great show for you as always on a Saturday morning, folks, so wake up and listen up and get involved with this program. We have a very special guest with us this morning. We have Mr. Justin Irvin, and he's with us this morning. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning, how are you?
Fine yourself. And Justin is working on a very special project, and I know that you folks are going to be very interested in because you know the subject of this project. And Justin, for our listeners, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and your occupation.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. This is really fun, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to say hello to you guys. And,
yes, sir.
And be back in Columbus and talk about Dr. Claude and the Powernomics documentary, so thank you for having me. My background is actually in fine art. I studied here at CCAD in Columbus. That's my alma mater, my undergraduate alma mater.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, I was initially an illustration major, drawing, painting, fine art, art history, all my bag, figure drawing, just very much into the fine arts in that way. But I wasn't exactly sure or confident how I was going to, matriculate that into a paying career. They teach you as is the classic case in many art schools, they teach you the craft, but they don't teach you the commerce.
That's right.
So what I and I guess that goes back to Claude, right?
Yep.
But so I studied there for a while. I taught high school for a year, in between graduating from CCAD and then moving to New York, where I freelanced for a while as a second assistant camera, and then in the film and TV industry, and just made the leap to really pursue cinematography on my own after I got my master's at SVA in New York City.
Okay, and so right now you're working on you worked on some projects. Talk a little bit about some of the projects you worked on, and then let's get to the project that you are presently working on that includes Dr. Claude Anderson.
Sure. I guess the most visible one that I've worked on has been Is That Black Enough for You on Netflix? The Elvis Mitchell directed documentary on what has been, for better or for worse, the term relegated to blaxploitation in terms of black movies that came out from 1968 to 1978. He really wanted to focus on that decade. So you see a lot of references made to films like Shaft, Superfly, Lady Sings the Blues, Coffee, on and on, and really sort of writing a love letter to that era in a way that is more indicative of making it, describing it as a film movement rather than a blip or a splash in the bucket. His contention is it should be in the same realm as Italian neorealism or French New Wave or Dogma 95. It's a film movement, so it was just a really big deal for him, and it was a big deal for me to shoot it. It's one of those projects that if I would have seen it, I would have thought, man, I really would have loved to work on that one. So that's been a gift.
Well, and when you mention the black movies such as Shaft and even you're talking about Superfly, I can remember back then those movies were characterized as black exploitation. But I always saw it differently. I always saw it as, putting black culture, and black life on the silver screen.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that sometimes the dominant culture wants to make a reality out of a certain segment. Who said it? I forget. I wish I could attribute the quote, but for white folks, most of the time when they see an action film or a horror film, they leave it at that. But whenever white folks see black folks on TV, it's a documentary automatically.
Right.
So you're watching the news, you're watching Shaft. Oh wow, are you all like that?
Right, exactly.
Monolithic in that sense. But no, it was a really fun film to work on. It was a fun film to be able to capture the images of all these superstars in our community in terms of people like Samuel L. Jackson, Lawrence Fishburne, Whoopi Goldberg, on and on and on. Charles Burnett.
Well, at the risk of sounding monolithic, I'm sitting there with you. You're a young man, and I'm thinking that you came up in the 90s. And so I guess my question is, where do you trace your first interest into black history, black culture in terms of being, a catalyst?
Well, I grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland. And for those who know the area, the know PG, the know the DMV, that area up until very recently has had the highest concentration of black people per capita in the U.S., as well as the highest middle class / upper class demographics of black people. So I didn't grow up with a minority mentality. And that's not to disparage anybody who has lived that experience, but you look around and everybody from the mayor, chief of police, on down to the panhandle, you see every segment of society.
Right.
So when you leave the area, for me, it didn't translate into having an experience that was one where I felt like I couldn't, or because I didn't see. Now, granted, I didn't really. Well, that's not true. In my church, growing up, there was a man named Steve Dorey who was very, very instrumental in the audiovisual department in our church, and he was always making films, making segments, making plays. So between growing up in the DMV and seeing a black majority, or at least something that you didn't notice or feel like any sort of minority or like lower segment of the population, between that and then seeing those little examples I have to take time to pull up, it just sort of traveled with me. I remember there was I don't remember the name of the program, but my parents had me with a childhood friend of ours and my sister, and just a black education experience as elementary schoolers. And even though where we grew up was majority black, there was just like their desire was to have a little bit of infusion, not necessarily indoctrinate, but just make you aware at that age. And so I guess that just traveled with me.
And because every time you say something, it brings more questions for me. Is that we grew up, like you said, we grew up in communities where a lot of the people that we saw looked like us. A lot of the people that owned grocery stores or our teachers, and doctors, looked like us. However, mentally, we always saw ourselves as a minority, and that was by design.
Right. Well, Dr. Claude, taking it to him for a second, really has a bone to pick with that. So, for example, in majority black cities, where you might be in Detroit, Chicago, D.C., you name it, right? You're still going to have a indoctrination that you are therefore the Atlanta. Why would you call yourself a minority in a place where you are the numerical majority, or at least 49%? That doesn't make sense, because what that does, according to Dr. Claude, would relegate you to a position of second-class citizenship anyhow. What he says, and it's in the film, he said, when you call yourself a minority, you might as well be calling yourself a loser.
Right. I'm really, because in America, unless you are a Caucasian male, you are considered a minority. The only majority, in this country, according to America standard, is a Caucasian, male. And so and let's get to Dr. Claude Anderson's. I mean, he wrote Powernomics. He wrote Black Labor, Black Wealth. Powernomics, to me, is is the Bible of economic, development and economic upbringing for black folks in this country. Why do you think, Justin, that it really never really caught on, to us as a people?
I think it's a huge question, and although I can't answer it, I do know that whenever I've talked about the film, there have been two camps. Oh, wow, you're making a Dr. Claude film, that's amazing, Dr. Anderson needs a documentary, on and on. Or it's who is this man and why have I never heard of him before? This information is amazing. So, I mean, you kind of have two camps, people who have heard of or at least had some sort of interaction with either Dr. Claude's book or his teachings, or they're the people who, for example, in my experience, the way I came about becoming aware of Dr. Claude, I mean, the book, you've seen around.
Right.
But I don't remember being specifically conscientious of him until The Breakfast Club.
And that's what I wanted to ask, is that what led you to Dr. Claude Anderson? So
I watched his interview on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne and Envy and the rest, and I was just fascinated by what he was saying. And so you start doing your deep dives, right? YouTube. I love YouTube anyway. YouTube is great. So that you can just go down a rabbit hole.
Right.
I watched him on Rock Newman. I watched various snippets of him back when he was doing shows for Detroit Black Journal, and his presentations at Dr. Price's church. And I was like, this dude has so much to say. I'm sure there's a documentary on him. More deep dives?
Right, none.
And nothing. So I thought, well, there's an opportunity here.
That's right.
So I reached out. I found a means of contacting, just, got a number, got an email, but also had a fax number. And I thought, well, these people probably get bombarded by phone calls and emails. Let me fax them.
Right.
And see what happens. 2 days later, his wife, Dr. Joanne, responded, and months later, after lots of conversation, negotiation, and persuasion, they agreed. But they've been absolutely lovely. Dr. Claude is a lovely human being. He's caring, he's nice, and even though his message comes with a lot of tough love, you can't separate the love from the tough.
That's right.
And Dr. Joanne, she's amazing. She's been nothing but instrumental in getting this thing off the ground too. So they're not just sitting back, in their rockers.
And what you just said, and I think that for some, for some of the people in the black community, receiving that tough love, was always tough. And so, the first instinct is to reject.
Sure.
And I think that's part of some of the issues around why we as a people have not just closed ranks and got behind this movement of empowering black folks. And so
the sensitivity.
Yeah, the sensitivity. It's like it's almost like we don't want to hear and let me put it this way: we rather get the honey and not the vinegar.
But the vinegar, both of them cure you, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it's a big question, right? I mean, even in crafting the film and looking at all of his archival footage and stuff, you wonder, okay, well, we have a plan, and we have a plan that it takes a heavy lift, but is manageable.
Sure.
But one of the big sounding boards that Dr. Claude talks about is your social cohesiveness. And as much as we have sensitive feelings about our condition, I think what's even more detrimental is the lack of unity. You mentioned earlier the whole idea of a monolithic people. It's funny because I always observed how person group X, whenever you step on their toe, no matter what their stripe within person group X, they coalesce. They all rally around that one thing that hurt their feelings or that offended them in some way or even legitimately wronged them in some way, right? And so they'll circle the wagons and get it done.
That's right. And so with the movie that you're putting together, how are you putting it together, and what is the timetable for it to be completed?
Yeah, I had a few people who really had to talk me off the ledge, meaning that I had this not reckless ambition, but maybe I don't know, unrealistic ambition to try and get it out before November 4th. I wanted to submit it as a social experiment.
Sure.
To get it out prior to the election to see what the effect of Dr. Claud's message would be to a contemporary audience prior to a major presidential election. That probably won't happen. But we're in the edit right now. I have a wonderful team who's been really creative and supportive and helpful in cutting it into a place that's not only educational but entertaining. You're going to enjoy the film very much. So in terms of a release date, we're working on that. My plan is to have it on a major streamer that would allow for maximum visibility and also, do good business. But yeah.
And Dr. Claude Anderson, I mean, you can't, everything he's done has been from, his heart.
Yeah.
It's been from his love of himself and his love of his people.
Yeah.
And he, has always, taken the position, to be the person, who promotes what is needed for the black community. And he's worked in presidential administrations as economic, advisor. They have him come and they have him be part of, something. But when it comes to really implementing, what Dr. Anderson, is all about, then, you get a whole different perspective.
Well, that's what he said in the film, right? I mean, even on The Breakfast Club, what he said was that he had spent all this time working in various administrations on behalf of governors, on behalf of presidents, et cetera. But, when that time came to an end, he really felt a strong calling to come back and use all that information and that knowledge to benefit his people. I mean, it's an old book, but y'all might remember The Spook That Sat by the Door.
Yes.
Dr. Claude is that spook that sat by the door. But without, there's obviously no violent streak within Dr. Claude, but what it is using the mechanisms and the ways of operation he's learned through his decades in government and then turning that information back over. Now, he's not going to spoon feed you, but he talks about the aggregate of information within his books, especially Black Labor, White Wealth, especially Powernomics, and especially the Black History Reader, that if you read those, then there will be a roadmap that develops, that emerges.
No question. And so when we talk about his views, what have you learned about, Dr. Claude Anderson's views that really made you say, you know what, I got to do this?
I think that a combination of everything we've been talking about so far in terms of my upbringing, in terms of working in media and having the perspective, knowing that media is a very powerful indoctrinating force within people. That can be for positive, that can be for negative, that can be for just general entertainment. But I think that what makes me interested in making his film is something that, honestly, the response I get from other Black folk when I talk about it, there's a leaning in.
Right.
It's like, oh, wow, okay, so, and then you show them a clip, and then they want more, or you recommend a book, and they want to know more. So I just think that, his story is one that is so layered and complex and interesting and valuable that, I mean, as a filmmaker and as an artist in general, you want to be curious about your subject matter, and I'm extremely interested in what it is he has to say, and I think it makes for amazing material.
No question. And Dr. Claude Anderson, I'm certain that he's an advisor, with you on this project.
Well, what they are extremely open and giving to allow me to tell their story. Their trust level is something that I don't take for granted and I honor tremendously. But like with any subject in a documentary film, if the subject is in control of the final product, then there can be questions of disingenuousness or well, how much control do they have? And they have the right and the ability to see every cut, every way, every moment.
Sure.
But no, they've entrusted me with the making of it.
That's great. And that was my next question is, how comfortable, has Dr. Anderson and Joanne been, in this project? Because I know that they're very guarded about, their personal life,
Not only that, but the people around them who know them are very protective of them. I'm the newcomer. So when I've had to come and ask for footage or can I speak to so-and-so's, the reaction, the emotional feeling I get, the aura I get is, well, who are you?
Right,
But then Joanne will be kind enough to make a call, or there will be an email that Dr. Claude sends out along with it, and then they, people loosen their, because they're beloved, and for a great reason.
Well, this radio station, we go way back with Dr. Anderson, and I can remember, being at his presentation, and like you said earlier, he doesn't spoon feed you, and he give it to you straight with no chaser,
None.
And so, and that's great because I got put on to him when I first heard him speak.
Right.
And he was speaking about things that I cared about, that I, had a concern about the way black folks are portrayed in this country, and particularly how we are been relegated to being second-class citizens as it relates to economic, political, and social empowerment.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's been what he's been thumping on forever now. Like, why would you allow yourself to be in that position?
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to this self-empowerment thing, right? Because everything he says is good for conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And nothing that he said is beyond, it's like, well, that's crazy. Like, you're in dangerous waters now. Now, you may not agree, and that's perfectly fine, but it's not nonsensical. It's not something that just comes out of the ether, out of nowhere. This man is a researcher. He's an historian.
Exactly.
And he's a professional. He's a businessman. He's a statesman.
Yep.
All those things. So it comes from a qualified perspective.
And when I think about, what Dr. Anderson has done over the years, I'm always, looking at the message that Marcus Garvey had, years ago. It's pretty much the same message, is for black folks to do for yourself what you are sitting around waiting for somebody else to do.
Up you mighty race.
Yeah, and so, and that's what Dr. Anderson's message has always been. We should be doing for ourselves what we want somebody else to do for us. And because it's never been in America's best interest to empower black folks.
Well, I mean, one of the testaments to his methodology is where we're sitting. Mm-hmm. He's a partner in this radio station, as far as I understand, right? Yeah. So he doesn't just dwell in theory.
Right.
He dwells in practice between the multiple radio stations that he's owned and operated, between the waterland fisheries, between the economic empowerment opportunities he's provided in the state of Florida for black folks, between little known fact, and I don't know that it's going to make it into the film because of, it's a singular documentary. It's not a multi-chapter series, although it could be, but it's not. He actually was responsible for saving FAMU.
Wow, see, I didn't know that.
When he moved from Detroit down to Tallahassee, there was an initiative by the state to fold FAMU, to sort of dispel it in the sense that we know it now, and fold it into the local community college. But he was responsible for lobbying and receiving a grant for $3 million that helped to save it, on top of the fact that, as we know, you want to find the black business district, look for the highway.
Right, yes, look for the highway, yeah.
They were going to build a thoroughfare right through FAMU's campus. So Florida A&M owes its existence to Dr. Claude, and I haven't had a chance or an opportunity to go to talk to anybody down there, and I don't know that the present day generation might be aware of that, because so many things get lost in ether. It's not FAMU's responsibility. I'm just saying that those kind of little stories are too numerous to tell, but he's been true for a very long time, Dr. Claude.
No question. Hey, folks, we're going to take a brief break. We're talking with Justin Irvin. He is a film producer that's producing a film on the life and legacy of Dr. Claude Anderson. 833-268-3786. Hit option 1. When we come back from the break, we'll take your questions. And we're back with more Front Street, and we're talking with Justin Irvin. He's a film producer that is producing a documentary on the life and legacy of Dr. Claude Anderson, the author of Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, and just a man that has committed his whole life, to advancing the interests, of black folks in this country, waking black folks up. And so, Justin, I know that you're working out of Jersey on the film, and so how far along are you, in terms of, getting the film, produced? Well,
I love the question, because that means there's an appetite for it. But I think the honest answer is that we can probably expect, when I say we, I mean my team and myself, a rough cut within a couple of weeks, and a fine cut before the end of the year.
Okay.
Including potentially a final cut before the end of the year. Now that's still, it has to run through the channels of finding distribution, finding a sales agent, all those things. But in terms, you won't have to wait until 2026, 2027 to see this film, you know.
Right.
And it's also my ambition, quite frankly, to have it out as fast as is acceptable for an amazing product, but also I want Dr. Claude to see it. You know, I want to be able to screen it with him and for him.
No question. And so, what medium do you see the film, being on that people can see it? I know it's going to be on, Netflix and.
Well, I mean, I can't speak to which platform, but I do know that there are certain methods of distribution and these days that allow for certain demographics to get what they're looking for. I think that, for me, the ideal distribution platform would be one that sort of speaks to the demographic that wants to see it. And a lot of the time with some of the major ones, you can get lost because there's so much programming.
Sure.
Self-distribution is becoming big these days. YouTube's a powerful force, and then there are others that are more mainstream that have the attention of the people. So we're gonna make the right decision when the time comes.
And when you talked earlier, you said that initially you would have liked to have got it out on November the 4th, which would have been the day before the election.
Yeah.
And which would really been a catalyst for people getting out and voting, because right now one of the big issues in this election is economics and the economy.
Everybody's feeling it.
Everybody's feeling it, and for Black folks, in order for us to participate in voting, we sometimes have to see ourselves on the ballot. And when you talk about the economy, we're always on the ballot.
Yeah, right. Well, Dr. Anderson is very, very vocal in not lobbying, but standing firm on the position of quid pro quo. And I think it's something that we, as Black folks, can recognize. We have not necessarily participated in the concept of this for that. And Dr. Claude makes a big issue of being told, go vote, go vote, go vote, without being told what you're going to get for it.
Exactly.
So it would have been lovely. I mean, life is what life is. And, I honestly didn't start shooting this film until I hit record in February 1st of this year.
Wow.
That's when we shot Dr. Claude's interview. That we did 3 days for 3 hours a day and got 9 hours of amazing firsthand footage. And Dr. Joanne and Dr. Claude opened up the vault of their archival film to us.
Wow.
And all the presentations you may have seen, some you definitely have not seen, as well as photos from their private collection that allow us a bit of a glimpse into his life. And so with all those factors being done in such a there we go, back. Sorry, hit the cord there. In such a compressed amount of time, it would have been impossible to get a finished film out by the end of the year. But no, to your point, I think it would have been a fascinating social experiment to get Dr. Claude's message out to Black folks to see what kind of impact it would make in this in this election season. But the film still lives and has a voice beyond November 4th.
And when you talk about his message of quid pro quo, there's nothing. Fair exchange has never been robbery, And Dr. Claude Anderson,
or inappropriate to ask for, because he'll thump really hard on the fact that you go to people group X, they will go to candidate Y and say this is what we expect, or there's money involved,
right?
And they say okay, they break you off, and this is what we want in exchange for that. The development of PACs and super PACs and all these different organizations that finance the campaigns for different candidates. It's his contention that we're left out of the game.
And a lot of it, some of it is because we are still trying to understand economics. We're still trying to understand money. you know, and how it is used, to, get something for something. And Dr. Anderson, his message to me has always been plain. He's never talked over people's head.
No.
He's talked real plain and real straightforward to you, like you're sitting on the porch and you're having a conversation
Right.
about, on the issues, confronting our community. And he gives it to you real plain, and for us, for some reason, like you say, we vote, but we won't demand anything in return. We don't ask for a return on our investment.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess you can expect to get what you ask for.
Which is nothing. That's what it has been. I mean,
Well, it specifically, his argument would be that specifically for black folk, don't fold it into minority,
Right.
don't fold it into person of color. He goes through great detail to express how black folks are an exceptional people. Exceptional doesn't mean better. Exceptional means you can't make it even comparison of this group to that group.
That's right.
No other group has endured the legacy of slavery, the legacy of Jim Crow, the legacy of benign neglect, and the legacy of, we were talking earlier during the break about the war on drugs. All these things point to a storied history that deserves special attention, special attention that is akin to our experience. And so I think that's one of the things. I think you asked me earlier what fascinates me about his story, and I think that's it, like just realizing the exceptionalism, the exceptionality of our experience. And because of that experience being so unique, unlike any other people group in the world, but especially in the United States, it's a fascinating thing to hear him break down the strategies, methods, and means of, ensuring that we not only see ourselves that way, but then we act accordingly when it comes to manifesting a destiny that reflects the exceptionality of who we are.
no question. And when you talk about how Caucasians, see his work and how black folks see his work, you get two different, attitudes. One, we don't want to hear about our experience
So long ago.
and Caucasians don't want to be reminded of their abusive behavior and inappropriate behavior toward black folks. So you have those two camps.
Well, both camps suffer.
But exactly.
We suffer as a result of the inheritance of these negative impacts upon us, and they suffer from the perpetuation of this false sense of superiority. And when these things get passed down, there are things that are put into the next generation negatively on both sides. And I think that, the truth will make you free.
Exactly.
And, it's funny, to your point about talking to white folks about the message, Dr. Claude relays in the film a story that he'd given a presentation. There was a white person there, and, they walked up to him and said, "Dr. Claude, I'm just so confused." He said, "Well, why is that?" He said, "Well, you have Martin Luther King on one side calling for full integration, and you have Malcolm X on the other side calling for full separation." He said, "Which end of the stick do you people want?" He said, "I don't want either end of the stick. I don't want separation. I don't want integration. I want aggregation, so that black folks can come together at any point in time for what they want and get the things that are beneficial to black people exclusively."
Well, you know what? And this film is going to tell Dr. Anderson's, story, in a much clearer and wider version than you can even get out of the books, because it's gonna put to rest all of this misconceptions, all of this misinformation. It's going to make it real plain and clear that Dr. Anderson's message has always been about uplifting black folks. And there's nothing wrong with that. And black folks, should accept that there is somebody, that has been willing to, stand in the gap, and tell the story.
No, it's amazing. And his work is, even if it weren't me making the film, this film should be made for those reasons that you articulated. I mean, his work is too unique, his writings are too seminal, and the issues are too important to ignore. And I would say that I think the film is honestly more of a companion to his body of work. I don't think it replaces it.
No.
I think that, you know, it's a different medium. You know, the motion picture medium allows for the absorption of the material in a way that's different from reading, but I don't think the books are obsolete in any way. Matter of fact, you read them now and it's like, oh my gosh, he wrote this in the mid-90s.
Right, exactly.
This is incredible.
Well, and I believe that this is a great time, you know, for one, the film to be made. And then, you know, once the film is made, then people are going to pick up the book again.
Yeah.
You know, and say, okay, so let me see what this guy has always been about. And when people read the book and they watch the movie, it's gonna awaken a whole new generation, you know, of black folks in this country to understand that we have to do what's in the best interest, you know, of our community, and we can't be worrying about other folks because other folks ain't worrying about us.
Right.
You know, but we got about a couple minutes left in this segment, and man, I've just enjoyed this conversation because Dr. Anderson is one of the people that I've always admired, and as I stated before, his message, you know, is a Marcus Garvey message.
Yeah.
You know, so with a few minutes left, what would you like for people to know? And then we would definitely want you to come back once the project is completed and ready.
I'd love to be back. This is great. I've had so much fun. Thank you again for having me. I think that, I'll just point people to the social media. You can follow the film's progress on Instagram at Powernomics Official. Is it Powernomics Official? Let me open up my phone to make sure I'm not getting that incorrect for you.
Yes, that's all right.
And then, you know, my Instagram is Mr. Justin Ervin, Mr. Justin Ervin, and that will be a way of tracking the progress of the film. Yeah, Powernomics Official Film. That's at Powernomics Official Film. There's also a website, powernomicsfilm.com, where we'll be giving updates. We're actually in the process of building that too, so they can give you updates as to when the film might come out. There's merch that you can buy.
Okay.
That Percy got to see yesterday. There's a really cool shirt that's sort of like an event shirt, concert shirt, and there's another one's a little more geared toward the young folk as well. So that'll be great. And yeah, just stay tuned. It's a privileged position to be able to be put in the role of helping to tell our stories in this way. And so whether it's Dr. Claude's film, whether it's Is That Black Enough For You, whether it's the 761st doc, there are a number of films that I've been working on this year as in the role of cinematographer that are coming down the pipeline that just continue to speak to our condition, our excellence, and you know, just sharing those stories. So it's a really fun career to have, and it's for me as a director as well as a cinematographer the opportunity to, I guess, focus on us in a way that is investigative, curious, introspective, but also, you know, I'm going to be your guys' age one day.
Yes.
And so I'm sort of looking forward, and I mean, I don't want to rush the time, but you know, these are the men that help shape the consciousness. We talked during the break about what happens when the lineage is broken in terms of passing down the information or the consciousness or the stories or the initiative to keep the ball rolling, to keep the movement going. Well, I mean, that's kind of my fascination as a filmmaker.
And you are a catalyst. You are a talking drum, because what you're doing is you are waking people up. You are making people aware of not just what Dr. Anderson, you know, has done, but this document, you know, Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth. This document is being, you know, put into a documentary, and it's going to be, you know, a document and a prescription for Black America to finally, once and for all, put our arms around a plan that is designed by us and for us. That's
what Dr. Joanne says in the latest Sizzle, the teaser trailer. She says it's not just about Black folks coming together. It's about Black folks coming together around a set of principles. And I think the film will talk about those principles very clearly.
Okay, well, Justin Ervin, thank you for coming on Front Street, man. I've enjoyed this because Dr. Anderson is just one of my heroes, and just to know that this project is going to be coming to fruition pretty soon, and his message, has been there all along, and now it's just going to be expanded. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Hey, folks, we'll be right back with more Front Street.